Hello. First thing I want to start with, my name's Scott, and I have a little confession. I've never been here before. I've been with Nordstrom for about 16 years and got an invitation from Brett by way of some of our technology people, I think in October. And around Halloween, Brett started kind of giving me a general reminder, hey, make sure you get your slides together and get ready. And then probably 6 weeks later more, and when did you get those slides, Brett? It was last night at 9
I believe
o'clock.
it was 9 p.m. last night.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your wonderful slides and for being here.
Really
tonight.
appreciate it. So just a little bit about me. My name's Scott. Dad, I thought those of you who get really annoyed by kids' pictures on Facebook have been 45 whole minutes without seeing them, so there you go. I work with a fashion retailer downtown here, if you're not familiar with us, and handbag seller. One of the things, when our teams get really ground down and tense, and one of the things I remind them is, guys, take a step back. We sell shoes and handbags. We're going to be okay. There's no rocket on a launcher here. Slide thief. I'm a thief. I'm not a plagiarist. Using some materials here that were partially developed by some awesome people on my team, and I hope you enjoy them and that I haven't polluted them. And my day job is I support a lot of our data-driven initiatives at Nordstrom. So personalization, some of our advanced analytics teams, and then directly to the customer, our mobile applications. Another confession, I'm a heavy Twitter consumer. I don't publish a lot on that. I did at one time. One of the things that happens when you turn into a suit at a large corporation is you inherit a PR team. Sometimes they're happy with that, sometimes they're not, but love Twitter. So talk a little bit about personalization. A lot of you here have probably had some aspects and experience with it, and I just want to talk today about the nature of one of the problems and one of the areas that I think is really fun, and it's one of the cool things we get to deal with. And if you've built recommenders and you've thought about data, it kind of exists on a spectrum. On the one hand, you have things like consumer goods, relatively static and somewhat easy to categorize, and honestly, a lot of us are fairly boring. I mean, a lot of us are brushing our teeth with the same stuff that we used 5 years ago. On the other end of the spectrum, closer to what we deal with is fashion. And for those of you who are involved in fashion, you know that has its own spectrum. And if you do it well, a lot of fashion has the shelf life of fresh fruit for the most part. The whole name of the game is get it in front of customers, and then move it really quickly. The entire name of the game in retail is turns. How quickly can you turn your inventory over, because you're paying for that space every day, you're paying to have the lights on, and so the whole name of the game is getting it in, getting it out there quickly, and getting it in front of the right customer. So this is just one specific aspect and way that we've approached it. And again, I think it's a kind of a cool illustration of some of what, and I know we're not supposed to sell, but some of the cool things that our team gets to attack in this fairly unique space. A big one is catalog, what I was talking about. That catalog, more so than I think in even a lot of other industries or consumer goods, is continually churning and turning over. And in fact, it's turning even faster if you're doing a good job, because the whole point of it, as I was saying, is to move it really quickly. And one of the areas that customers really care about and really respond to is color. And there's a fascinating, at least if you're in fashion retail, there's a fascinating amount of information and stuff going on there that actually lends itself to some really cool technology problems. So one of the things that we did is, getting color right is particularly challenging in fashion, because you would think, if you have a yellow shirt, blue shirt, red shirt, well, you can have a human-based classification system, and you can have people enter data, or you can pull data from a catalog, and that's great. Your recommender can understand that, do some matching, and go. The problem is, obviously, that that's not what fashion designers use for colors, because yellow is boring. I mean, they need something like summer custard or something like that along the way. And so one of the ways that one of our teams came up with an idea to attack this was, how can we go at this from more of a data process, create a robot with the ability, essentially, to ingest the stuff really quickly, get assignment, understand what it has on its hands, and then use some math instead of, an army of 1,000 people typing in data and trying to categorize things. This is a real example of taking high-resolution photos. So we get a lot of high-resolution photos, and we create a database of swatches. So for every item that comes into the catalog, you get a really nice high-definition swatch that goes with it that you can, in turn, digitally process. And so stage one of what the team did was built an algorithm to quantify and weight the color of every item. So again, not necessarily rocket science. It's just a very elegant, kind of quick way that you can let a machine do what people have been doing, honestly, for 100 years.
Scott, I can't tell. Is that blue or is that gold and white?
I love it. Against that, you come from the customer side, and this again is a real example. Obviously, by having all of our retail locations and our e-commerce presence, customer by customer, we can actually take and match up, for every swatch that someone has bought, so for every item someone has bought, you can take that swatch and run it through the same algorithm, and you actually come up with these. For fashionistas or for people who are very seasonal, you get this kind of bright range of colors and some really interesting stuff. For a guy like me, you get boring blue and gray, and mine was a little sad when I saw it the first time, but it is. I mean, it's actually a very interesting way, and then when you look at it over the course of 10 million or 20 million customers, you very clearly can see some of the trends and things come up. Boop, boop. I'm sorry? Boop, boop. All done. I will get 30 seconds. So you get an individual color fingerprint per user. You can match the two of these things up, and it turns out you can actually process a lot of that very quickly. Come at it again, separate all the nearby colors out, and then given enough data, we can color the entire spectrum and match our entire inventory customer by customer. It's really cool. It's underneath. I want to say thanks to the IT folks, New Tech Seattle, Data Lab. To mention car hacking, if you ever get to a point in your career where they don't let you touch a keyboard anymore, get a Jeep. It is completely hackable. You can kind of get your fingers on it, get it dirty. Super fun outlet if you're not allowed to code or do anything anymore. Questions? Right here. No, they did it all through digital processing. So they were able to actually, because the swatch comes in digitally, they were actually able to write code that was able to do that. It wasn't me, to be clear. It was a very cool part of my team. Yes? You can do all of the above because, the same thing if it's an individual, and you can have an individual color profile. If all you know is generically, this person has picked this item, you can provide anything else in the catalog. Essentially, as soon as it lands and it gets processed, you can provide corresponding complementary colors. Yeah. Well, if we do it correctly, and in this case, you build it so that you can use it anywhere. And so as long as you create it as a service, obviously web and pure digital is easier. There's no reason that you wouldn't do that with selling tools or mobile apps or anywhere else that it would make sense for a customer. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we would talk about that publicly, and this is one aspect for particular facets of it. I think when you build, once you get into this for a while, you realize that it takes a kind of variety of different strategies to really tune up to what the customer wants. Like for a guy like me, who's not color sensitive, it probably wouldn't matter as much. For someone who's very into that, it lets you kind of tune to them and serve them one-to-one. Yeah. The second question is a great one, and I'll find out. The first question is, potentially, and we work with folks occasionally, the challenge is that, like I was leading off with, fashion is not CPG, and some basic recommender pieces just end up kind of hitting a wall. And there's just some aspects that, again, because we sell handbags and sell fashion and sell clothing every day, you kind of get tuned into that nuance and that customer. Does that make sense? Am I running over, Brett? Yeah? We don't, for the most part. I mean, you can absolutely take it back the other direction. This was specifically around, as you have new items coming on every day, how do you get them in front of the right customer as quickly as possible without waiting for manual labor to categorize and ship things? Well, I think you certainly could. You just have not yet. It's data. So, as you know, you create data for one thing and then eventually find half a dozen different things to do with it.
One more question?
That would be a very natural thing to do, yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.